Pedro from A&P-Reacts. I'm here with the great Spencer of Vice 9 Kills to talk about the Silver Scream 2. Welcome to Horrorwood. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. I always enjoy watching your reaction videos.
Well, we have another one coming up for your latest video, and I try to give a breakdown on the inspiration behind each and every single song, but that's a discussion for another day because I want to pick your brain, man. I absolutely love this record. I want to pick your brain. First thing I want to ask you is, just like any other sequel, is this album a result of the success of the Silver Scream?
I think partially, but on a larger scale, I've always been fascinated with movie making and horror movies, obviously, and franchises and the way that stuff works. And in true horror fashion, you've got to have a sequel, and that's what I wanted to present. And I'm really excited about how it came out, and I hope it lives up to the legacy of great sequels like Friday the 13th Part 2 and Halloween 2 and all those other great sequels that I remember being so excited to see once I fell in love with the first film in the franchise.
Yeah, sometimes the sequels don't pay justice to the original or to the predecessor. I feel like this album is actually better than the predecessor. So you guys are definitely on the right track.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that a lot.
Just phenomenal album. How much from the predecessor did you take, and how much new did you want to bring in order for this album to feel like a continuation, but at the same time to be as fresh as possible?
I think we just wanted to approach the sequel trying to one up everything from the original. We wanted it to be heavier. We wanted it to be at the same time a little bit wackier in some songs. I think, in Scream 2, when Randy is talking about, the legacy of sequels, he says, like, the body count is always bigger. The production, it's bloodier. The budget is increased. And I think that was the idea, to try to make the Silver Scream 1 on steroids and just up everything from the music video production to the lyrical wordplay, to the instrumentation, to the technicality, to the choruses. We wanted to make everything bigger and feel like a larger scale production.
What is your starting point when you approach a record like this? There's so many moving pieces, from the themes that drive the songs to the lyrical content to the actual music on the tracks to the guests that you have coming in. There's just so many things happening. Where do you start?
Usually it always starts with me figuring out what movie I'd like to celebrate. And then from there, usually I'm sitting with a guitar, messing around with chord progressions and melodies. And that's how it always begins. And I'll stumble upon, what I think is a really good melody. And I'll, mess around with some words, mess around with some structures, bring it to the other guys in the band, kind of continue to flesh things out, see what they want to bring to the table. And that's how it always starts. Of course, there are some exceptions to the rule, like maybe for one song, we'll go work with a guy like John Feldman, or we'll sit down and, write a song from scratch with Drew Falk. But usually the inception of the songs always starts with me, an acoustic guitar, and an idea of what movie I want to pick.
The album has a great sense of continuity. I felt like with the Silver Scream 1, the individual songs were outstanding, but they really felt like individual songs. On this album, there's still individual songs, but there's a better flow from track to track as you progress down the track listing. It's almost a seamless process as you move along. Did you guys spend a little bit more time on the track listing and putting these tracks in the best dynamic order as possible?
We did. We experimented with a lot of different orders for the songs, and I think it went through a number of different versions, and we tried to really pace out the album so it felt like a movie, some highs and lows, and these songs feel connected and these songs don't, but that's kind of cool to put them back to back. And finally, after a long process, maybe like a week's process of sitting down and kind of jumbling them all together in a different order on a you know, Apple Music playlist, we found the best way to do it. So I'm glad that you picked up on that.
And the guitar playing on this record was so crisp, was so on point, moving, almost giving me a sense of directing me where I needed to go. Did you guys approach the guitar sound with a different game plan for this album?
I think just like everything else, we just wanted to take it up a notch, and make the guitar stand out even more. You know, technicality wise, tone wise, you know, we really sort of went through every possible kind of amp simulator, and we found, I think, the perfect tone for each song. You know, we didn't want the whole album to have the same tone. We wanted each instrument to represent the feeling of the movie and the score of those films. So it was a really fun process.
And you already mentioned that this is a heavier album. I feel like this is a much heavier album, and it doesn't get much heavier than Corpse Grinder on vocals on one of the tracks. How was that? How was working with Corpse Grinder on a song?
It was so cool when we found out that he was into the idea of being on our album. Obviously, for a lot of people, that's one of the first death metal bands they've ever heard. For me, it was, you know, when I saw Ace Ventura back in the day, and someone gave me a copy of Vile at summer camp when I was probably like 9 or 10. And we knew we wanted to make this song the heaviest ink song we've ever made. And given that, and given the fact that it's so obviously horror oriented, we thought, what better guest vocalist than, you know, the man himself, Corpse Grinder from Cannibal Corpse. And we were just so excited that he liked the song, and he did an awesome job. And I'm super excited for people to hear that one, because I think no one's going to expect where that goes.
You have other guest vocalists on the album, and you've had guest vocalists on the previous record as well. Is this something that you like to throw in for fans as a little bit of a caveat, or you're looking more at who can I bring in that's going to serve the song and give it the right vibe, the right feel, the right sound?
I think it's 100% a combination of those two things. We want to bring someone in that, you know, it's not just we're throwing the name there for the namesake. We want it to elevate the song and make it that much better. And secondly, it excites the fans. You know, it excites people who wouldn't expect us to have someone like, you know, from Cannibal Corpse on our album. And it just makes things that much more exciting. It's kind of like when there's a cameo in a movie that you didn't expect, that wasn't necessarily advertised on the poster or in the trailer, but it's like that extra little cherry on top of the bloody cake that makes it that much cooler.
And your vocals on this record are just phenomenal. I didn't think you could top yourself from the previous album, and then release this album, and you're even better on this album. Your vocals were crisp. They were filled with life and energy on every single song. Have you been doing anything, or you just reached the point where you feel really comfortable in that pocket, so when you come into an album, you know exactly what you're going to deliver?
Well, thank you so much. I think it just, you know, it comes from doing it for such a long time. And also the fact that in the band now, there are 4 people that scream on this record: myself, Dan, Joe, and Ricky. And we kind of wanted to utilize the fact that we all have very kind of different screams. And we really painstakingly went over, let's give this line to you, and this line to Dan, and this line to Ricky, and this line to Joe. And we almost wanted it to have, like, in a song like Funeral Derangements, where it's, you know, back and forth between 4 vocalists, almost like a Beastie Boys of metal kind of vibe. And I'm glad that you picked up on that.
One of my favorite tracks on the album. But by the way, I think you could sing a grocery list, and it would sound absolutely amazing. Like you have one of those voices that you could sell ice to Eskimos with the greatest of visas. So I just feel like you will always bring so much to the table with your range, with the way you attack the tracks in terms of what you're going to use, when you're going to use it, and then the way you bring the lyrics to life. It's almost like I'm listening to a audio book every time I listen to one of your songs.
Well, thank you. That's really nice of you to say.
Having said all of that, was there a song that gave you some trouble?
Writing wise?
Recording, to nail it to the point where you wanted to be.
Not one is really sticking out in the recording way, but I mean, definitely every song, you know, I'm the kind of guy that does so many different takes because I want to hear back, oh, like, oh, I could do it like this. I could do it a little bit angrier. I could do it a little bit more psychotic sounding, or I could deliver this one in you know, an octave below. So I think, you know, I'm just one of those kind of guys that wants to leave no stone unturned so that we could find the best way to deliver every single line. And we really treat every instrument with the same care.
You guys put a lot of work on the record, but you also put a lot of work on the music videos. How involved are you in terms of the concept, the idea, how everything comes to life when it comes to Ice Nine Kills music videos?
You like the songs, you know, it starts with an idea that I have in my head, and we're lucky enough to be able to work with so many talented people like our director Jensen, the producer Phoenix, you know, co-writer of mine, a friend of mine, Andrew Smith, Chris Nilsson. There's so many people that kind of go into the creation of the music videos, but it just, I'm so thankful that I'm in a position where I could be, you know, driving in my car and I'm like, oh my God, would it be so cool if, you know, in the Assault and Batteries video, like we could have an axe mounted on a toy train and it chops the woman's head off and it flies towards the screen. Wouldn't that be cool? And then I'll bring it to our directors like, yeah, we can do that. So I'm just so thankful that we have the team behind us to sort of carry out these wild, wacky thoughts that I have.
How much fun is it for you to be on the internet and see the struggles that fans go through trying to figure out the influences that are driving the songs of the new album? Is it fun for you? Like, I see so many articles, so many people talking about it. Do you giggle in the background, like reading some of these articles, seeing some of these posts?
I definitely do. That's like one of the most rewarding things that I see from doing these kind of albums, and the excitement of knowing that, you know, I'll intentionally put out the track listing with the song names, knowing that people are going to guess what movies they're about. And some people get it right on. Other people suggest certain movies that aren't right. But I think to myself, oh man, that's a really good guess based on that song title. So I think it's just one of those things that makes it fun for our fans, because it's not just an album and a band, but it's like almost like a mystery surrounds everything before it's finally unleashed. And I don't think you necessarily get that with a lot of albums, you know?
No, I think that was the beauty of it. I mean, when I was listening to the album, I was still trying to figure it out what movie influenced some of the songs, because there's some deep cuts on how you guys put these tracks together as far as the lyrics are concerned. So if you're not super familiar with a movie, it's sometimes a little bit harder to figure it out. And I think that's the beauty of it.
I think so too. It just makes it like more of an immersive experience, which is what we've always been trying to go for.
Is there a horror movie that you guys haven't covered on this record and on the previous album that you kind of feel like it has a home on either record, but somehow didn't quite make it?
Not yet. I mean, I think a lot of them that I wanted maybe to or thought about doing for the first one ended up on the second one. So not just yet, but I'm sure one will come to me after we release this one and we hear a bunch of fans saying, oh man, you got to do this one. So I think we'll see where that goes.
One last question for you, and that is, when you look back at this album, at the whole process of building this record, doing the music videos, like you said, reading all the comments from fans, trying to discover what's behind each and every song, overall, what's the most gratifying aspect of being involved in making a Nice Nine Kill album, more specifically the Silver Scream 2?
I think, you know, this album, you know, was very influenced in the way that it was made by the pandemic and the situation that we were in this kind of really crummy alternate reality almost, where like everyone was sort of thrown this deck of cards that they're not used to, that, you know, the job that, you know, doesn't exist. Touring is gone. And we just tried to make the most out of it. And I think, although the pandemic was, you know, tragic in so many ways, we wanted to try to put some sort of silver lining to the cloud. And I think that was the fact that we got to spend so much time, more time than we usually would have, to dedicate to perfecting the songs. Because usually when we make an album, it's just like we get to work on it as much as we can in between tours and on the bus. This is the first time where we just had like pretty much a year straight, over a year, to just make sure everything was perfect in our eyes. So I think that the fact that we got the most time we've ever had to work on a record, I think is the most rewarding thing about working on that album. We got to take the time.
Well, Spencer, thank you very much for your time, man. I'm a huge fan of yours, huge fan of the band. Both my son and I, huge fans. So I really appreciate from the bottom of my heart you taking the time to chat with me about this incredible record. I love this album.
Thank you, man. I'm a fan of your guys. Please tell your son I say hello. Always a pleasure watching your videos. It's a great insight, and you guys make some really very interesting comments and have an interesting point of view that I don't always see from reaction videos.
My son is going to lose his marbles. You guys are the only band that I think he's purchased the Silver Scream, the first one, 4 times on 4 different devices. The guy, like, I don't think you can get much bigger fan than that. Like, not only I had the copy that I got from the label, the dude purchased the album 4 times. And he
Oh my God.
Everything you guys release, he buys it on every single device that he has. So he doesn't transport it over from device to device. So I mean, it's my money at the end of the day, but still, I applaud the effort.
I love that, man. Well, thank him for me. You guys are awesome.
Well, thank you. Take care. All the best.
Take care, buddy.